A few experiments with the Genki wave ring.
So, hi everyone. Thank you, Ari, for the introduction. Like you said, my name is Ólafur, and I am the co-founder of Genki Instruments. And at Genki Instruments, we believe that technology should feel natural. And the first embodiment of that journey is Wave, the ring that you just saw in the video. And Wave is a ring that allows you to change sounds, shape effects, and send commands using gestures, or the 3 rings here available on the ring. Now, Wave has gone through several phases in its development. We first started out with the idea phase, where everything was brand new and we were excited to embark on this new, fresh journey. Then we went on through the strenuous R&D phase, where we built countless prototypes and developed the final software and firmware running on the ring, as well as the design. Then we went into production of the ring, after which we almost had a complete mental breakdown because we didn't realize what we'd gotten ourselves into, and until finally we shipped to happy customers all over the world. And Wave is kind of a unique product, wouldn't you agree? Wouldn't you agree? Okay. Yes, Wave is a really unique product. And so it also poses some marketing challenges because well, we can't really sell it in brick and mortar shops because we don't have the capital to educate the people that are in the shop. So we have to focus our attention solely to get on online audiences. So most of our clients, we advertise to them and we show them how they can improve their music making with Wave and educate them moving forward once they've bought the product, etc. And I'm really, really proud of my team to have built this all up. And as we reached a huge milestone last month when we sold our 1,000th Wave. So thank you very much. You can clap now. I mean, 1,000 might not sound like a large number, but to us it really means the world because we have made it all from the ground up. It's taken a lot of effort. And I'd like to give a round of applause to my team here. They're sitting here in the audience. So if you can just clap to them a bit. Yeah. Because, so the design criteria behind Wave started off around 4 years ago when we embarked on the journey to create an interface or some kind of device that would help musicians better engage with their audience when they're performing live. And we didn't really set out to create a smart ring at all. That just kind of happened, you know, through the design phase, of course. And the first step of that phase was to gather data from potential customers. So we spoke to artists from all over the world and got their feedback on what such a device should be able to do. The first criteria that we came up with after speaking to them was the ability for them to be able to move around. They didn't want the device to kind of make them stand still in front of a camera or some have their hands somewhere over some kind of sensors where they couldn't move. They shouldn't be restricted in any way. They should be able to turn it on and off with one hand because when you're playing an instrument, both of your hands are kind of settled in place and you're using all of your thinking and focusing into the playing. So it shouldn't take you out of the flow. You can just turn it on and off with one hand, right? It should have granular control, which means that it should have fine control. You should be able to really hear the difference because our sensory organs and our auditory system, it's really, really fine-tuned to minuscule changes in pitch and timbre. And we wanted the device to be stable enough for professional musicians to use and love to play. And because we were a startup here in Reykjavik, we decided that we only wanted one device for everyone, because we didn't want to get into the logistics nightmare of having different shapes for different finger sizes. Now, moving through these different slides, you can see the sketches. And this was sketches which my wonderful product designer, Jón Helgi, came up with after the design phase. And you can see there are a lot of crazy ideas going on. This is probably my favorite. It says hologram screen. I don't know if you can read that. But for an engineer like myself, it's kind of interesting to see, yeah, just make it, man, or like, but that's besides the point, right? Because when you're in the design phase, you should be focused on exploding the problem out and trying to figure out what's there. Although you might end up throwing away 99% of all the design that's there and killing your darling in every step, killing your darlings in every step, at least the journey will be worth it in the end if you're able to overcome these challenges, right? So after setting out this design criteria, we realized that a ring was inevitable, or after, it wasn't inevitable in the beginning, but after the phase, right? And that's how it looked in the end. You have these 3 buttons here, so you can turn it on and off. It has an adjustable strap here, so it just works with every finger sizes. And then it's of course wearable, so you can move around freely when you're you're having a concert, right? After we launched Wave to market, and in the process of developing Wave, we kind of realized that the design criteria and the technology and the design that we had could be applicable outside of music. But we realized that what we were trying to do by just bringing one hardware product was hard. So we had to focus all of our attention, just bringing it to one market, one product, one market. Try to be focused, right? But in 2017, we had the opportunity to give like a talk and a speech, and we couldn't resist the urge, because we knew that we could maybe devote like a half a day of engineering time, and then try to come up with a new firmware version that's on the ring, that's the software on the ring, that's allowing you to use it to change slides, right? And so we decided, okay, let's do it. So we spent half a day, and by the end in the middle of the night, we had the firmware working. And then the next day we gave the pitch, and it was great, because it gave us so much confidence to be able to use the ring when performing. Because you can use your hands like you would in normal conversation, right? You don't have to be restricted to a remote like that when you're giving the presentation. You can move away, and I don't know if you've noticed the speakers here, they've been using their hands a lot today, and that's so rewarding to see. And we really feel that it gives us additional, it gives us safety, that we don't drop it, and we can hold on to our notes, etc., etc. And we gave a couple of units out to our friends and colleagues, and let them try it, see what they think. And we were happy to find out that they kind of echoed our statements of this kind of increased confidence and the expression it gave you with your hands. And so that is why we are now launching Halo. Halo will be launching in the spring, and it's like I said, you've seen it probably all day. You can, move backwards or forward, move backwards, forwards, or blank the screen. Like, it's super simple. We are kind of running a real world user study here. I don't know, but you've kind of been partaking in it. And most of the guests here, they've had the ring put on like 5 seconds before they put it on stage. But that at least is somewhat of a testament to how easy it is to use it, right? But okay, so this is, for us, the first kind of foray into exploring new use cases outside of music they want to explore. And I just want to give you an example of some other future use cases that we've been working on. I use Halo when I'm biking to work, because it allows me to have both hands on the steering wheel, but still be able to, change tracks or adjust the volume, etc. And in the smart home of the maybe not so distant future, you'll be able to use Halo and integrate a bunch of different services with it. So you can use it to change your lighting, or control your TV, And that's all available now through services like Zapier or Samsung SmartThings. But these are all kind of future use cases, right? And this is kind of, in the near future, this might be something that we'll be looking at. So you can hear that we are kind of trying to develop for the future. And we really feel that if we want to develop for the future and be successful at it, that it's a good idea to take at least a look at it in the past and look for inspiration on how people have done it well. So that is why I want to give you with a little bit of a context. And I present to you here a brief and highly opinionated history of the computer mouse. All right, yes. All right, so as far as I've gathered, it all started by the end of the Second World War, where Ralph Benjamin was working for the Royal British Navy. He was tasked with the goal, with the objective of creating an analog computer where you would be able to put an input on a two-dimensional screen, and the computer would try to calculate and estimate trajectories of Nazi airplanes. But he didn't like the joypad that he had to move the cursor around the screen. So of course, being the engineer that he was, he developed his own. He took a ball and placed it in a jig on a table, placed sensors at 90 degrees angles, perpendicular one to one another, and then he could place his hand on top of the ball and move the cursor around the screen, effectively creating the first trackball mouse, right? 7 years later, in isolation, engineers from the Canadian version of Ferranti, they were under contract with the Danish DARPA to create a similar interface to a two-dimensional screen. Well, their budget was severely limited, so they tried to make do with what they had, and one of them had a bowling ball lying around, so he just put that in a jig and was able to move his hands like this to move the cursor around. Due to the nature of these projects, they didn't really go anywhere because the defense agencies kept them at arm's reach. So now we're in the story where the often cited father of the computer mouse comes into the picture. And he is definitely, this is definitely the precursor to the modern mouse, the direct precursor to the modern mouse. And that was developed by Douglas Engelbart and his engineer friend, Bill English. He had the idea in '61, and Bill English built the first prototype in '64. And I think I'll just let Douglas Engelbart explain the mouse himself.
Come in Menlo Park. Okay, there's Don Andrews' hand in Menlo Park. And in a second we'll see the screen that he's working and the way the tracking spot moves in conjunction with movements of that mouse. I don't know why we call it a mouse. Sometimes I apologize. It started that way and we never did change it. All right, as it moves up or down or sideways, so does the tracking spot. And the principles for its operation are quite easy to see. If you'll turn it over, Don. Can you hear me, Don? Would you turn it over and we'll see, right? Its principle is that there are two wheels that roll on the surface. But since they're at right angles and kind of sharp edges, one will roll and the other slide in one direction.
Isn't this amazing? This is in 1968, and they're having a live video conference from San Francisco to Menlo Park. And you would have thought that in all this time that's passed since then, that we would have fixed video conferencing. But I guess not. But I really encourage you, this is an excerpt from a video, from a demo that he did that later became known as the mother of all demos. And I really encourage you to go to YouTube and look this up. This is a remarkable presentation of many of the concepts that will later become a staple of the personal computer. But on we go with our story. Bill English moved over to Xerox PARC, which was a Palo Alto research center of the Xerox company, in '71. And in '63, Xerox released the Xerox Alto, which is by many thought of as the first personal computer. But it may be because of all the features it had it had connectivity. They coined the term Ethernet. They had a graphical user interface. They had a new programming language paradigm called object-oriented programming, which was invented there, and so many other things that they just invented there in this Palo Alto Research Center. And one of them is, of course, the mouse that you can see there on the screen. And the mouse, it had some new innovations. It had a ball inside. It didn't have this slip and slide kind of interface that Douglas Engelbart showed you here previously. And it had 3 buttons. And these 3 buttons were there because they had done extensive user testing and they had gotten a huge grant from DARPA, and they had concluded that the mouse with 3 buttons was the best interface they could find for the computer. But unfortunately, the upper management at Xerox PARC, they didn't really see the potential of the computer and how revolutionary this Xerox Alto computer was. And so they didn't really put enough money into marketing and enough money into production to try to make it commercially successful. So it kind of just withered down. It was never released on a mass market basis. But that left room for other people in the Bay Area in the 1980s and 70s to come and take a look and see what's happening at Xerox PARC, right? And one of them was 24-year-old Steve Jobs. And he came to Xerox PARC and got a tour of the Xerox Alto. And it took him 10 minutes to realize that this would be the future of personal computing. So he rushed back to Apple, told all his management about it, and then persuaded Xerox upper management to allow him to bring all of his developers to Xerox PARC to get the demo. And effectively, they stole or borrowed these things that they saw. And the first commercial personal computer which had the mouse is arguably the Apple Macintosh, which was released in '84. All right, so this concludes my brief and opinionated history of the computer mouse. And on we move into the present. Because the mouse was really developed for a computer screen, for a 2-dimensional screen to be moved around with, right? You can move and you can navigate the screen. But today, we are designing for different screens or different interfaces. We are designing for smartphones, we're designing for speakers, we're designing for all these different wearables. And really in the future, we'll also be designing for AR, VR, and mixed reality, where we'll be kind of having to figure out a new way to adjust the temperature of our oven. And I would just like to take a couple of minutes now to show you what is really happening in this interesting, what's being developed now and released as products in this interesting mesh of interfaces to computers. And the first off is the Maya wristband. And they innovated before you had this wristband, you had to shave off your hair, you had to apply some gel and place your hand in a huge bulky machine to be able to measure the electrical activity of your muscles. But they said, no, okay, we're going to try to do something a little bit more smoother. So they just developed a wristband which you could wear, and it would read this data and send it over to a computer. Really interesting company. They've now morphed into what's called North, and they've kind of what you say is pivoted, and they're creating now fashionable smart glasses, which is what's called focals, and they look pretty cool. And they also have a ring to navigate their interface. But anyways, so they moved away from this technology for the muscle for sensing muscle activity. And in the meantime, this summer, Control Labs went ahead and bought all of their patents. And Control Lab is a startup from New York, composed of computational neuroscientists, and the guy that was originally in working for Windows on the Internet Explorer team, and has built amazing products in the past. And what they are advertised is that they are building a computer neural interface. And the neural interface part comes in because they're using a similar technology to the Mia wristband, but they're coupling that with algorithms, with say deep learning algorithms, to try to decipher action potentials on your motor neurons inside your spine. That's what they're advertising, right? Sounds like science fiction, so I was really interested to buy their dev kit, which is supposed to come out last fall. But in the meantime, Facebook stepped in and acquired the company for $500 million to $1 billion. Another interesting product coming out of Facebook is the Oculus Quest. Does anybody own Oculus Quest in here? One guy, two guys. How do you like it? It's great, right? Yeah, people say that it's probably the most successful VR product of all time. And one testament of that is that it's essentially been sold out now for months. An interesting technology there is in the headpiece, they have forward-facing cameras, so no external cameras that you have to set up. And you can use the controllers to track your movement. Or you can drop the controllers and use your hand tracking. But of course, that has some caveats. If you move your hands and cross it like that, the technology breaks down. Or if you're not in good ambient lighting, it also doesn't work. Another interesting company is called NextMind. They're developing a brain computing interface that's non-invasive. So you wear it here on the back of your skull, and you're able to train the device to turn off the volume or maybe change a slide on a presentation. And another interesting company is called Neuralink. This is funded by billionaire Elon Musk. They are on a quest to build an implant that you could essentially have to go and you have to have a surgery. You have to remove pieces of your skull and inject sensors inside. How many of you would like to do that? Okay, interesting. But this is just to show you, give you some of the example of what's happening in the field. So, because we at Genki Instruments really believe that we also have interesting technology that it can apply to a variety of use cases. And our design and our technology stack makes us uniquely fitted to that. We put ourselves up to really high standard when it comes to processing of data and doing real scientific work. Here we are using the high-speed camera system at Össur to get ground truth data to measure against the algorithms running explicitly on the ring. And now I would like to show you a couple of demos of use cases that we've developed just to show you where we are thinking in terms of the ring and how that interface can be expanded in the future. All right, so in the last demo that you saw, we are able to transcribe gestures directly into text. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, cool, thank you. Thank you. And in the near future, we'll also be able to transcribe gestures directly into actions. So you can send actions directly from the ring over to your device. For example, change the slide or something else. And since I'm here with a room filled of some of the brightest minds in technology in Iceland, I'd like to let you know that we are funded for the foreseeable future and that we are hiring, both in sales and marketing and in engineering. So if you're interested, please talk to me after the show. Because we really feel that we should not have to adapt to technology that's all around us, but that technology instead should have to adapt and understand the nuances of human expression. And that is why we are building a future where technology truly feels natural. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it.